Chapter 1. A mistake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No. 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 This can't be happening, she internally screamed. Everything was her fault. She gave in to temptation and had to suffer for it. A few hours ago, the sun shone bright in the sky, and spring had finally arrived. Last night's drizzling had caused all the dust, which had been brought with the spring breeze, to be washed away. Even the leaves that grew in the trees had an appearance of renewal. While the temperature was cooler than usual, nature was still full of vitality and vibrant colors. Veronica had been meaning to sneak out for a while. After seeing her few brothers and sisters sneaking out on the weekend, of course a flame ignited within her, luring her to do the same. Envied at every Monday night, she would hear the stories of their adventures. You have no idea how bustling the square is at night. Street musicians play music and couples dance. It's so wonderful. I wish you could eat the street snacks they sell. It's cheap and delicious. You have to eat it when it's hot. I'll save some money and buy it for you next time. Each story she heard urged her to go outside. Each story she heard urged her to have an adventure. Each story she heard urged her to be free. Since it was Veronica's 18th birthday, she thought that even if she snuck out and got caught, she would be forgiven. After all, it was her special day. Her heart's beating syncopated as she grew more eager to visit the town for the first time in her life. Veronica wore a white full-sleeved cotton top with a brown corset, and a gray skirt. She covered her head with a white scarf. She felt her blood boiling with excitement, even though she was wearing second-hand-worn-out clothes. Regardless of what she decided to wear, playing dress-up was more fun than she had imagined it to be. As the birds welcomed the new day with their melodious chirps, Veronica stealthily sauntered along the corridor. Her footsteps were lighter than feathers, inaudible, as she was barefooted. Her shoes were gripped in her hand. It was the strategy she had come up with so that she wouldn't wake others when she walked. Yet her heart thumped unhinged. Thumping as she thought someone could catch her at any moment. Without being noticed by others, Veronica crept to the storeroom beside the kitchen. She carefully closed the door after looking around for a while. When she was confident that no one was watching her, she let out a sigh of relief. It looks like Goddess Jovina is on my side today. Thank you, Goddess Jovina. Veronica thanked the goddess happily. After that, she opened the back door of the storeroom and fled using that door. Soon, Veronica found herself in the back alley. Silence had consumed sound, and the only faint noise she could hear was her own breathing. It was a sign that no one had woken up yet. Did I come out too early? Veronica pondered with a thoughtful face. Fortunately, she wasn't hungry yet and was fueled with energy to move on. While the town was still asleep, only the mellow songs of the birds accompanied her. The whole town was swathed by serenity. Veronica took out a small piece of paper which was folded into a square. On it was a map of the town and surrounding areas drawn by an amateur. Veronica brought the map close to her and squinted her eyes, trying to figure out what the drawings depicted. It says north, then north is. Thinking deeply, she looked up to the sun which was rising in the east. If that is east, then north is on my right. I'll go in the opposite direction, towards the south. Veronica folded the paper and hastily put it back inside her pocket. As she wandered through the street, she was curiously glancing at her surroundings. She had seen this scenery from inside her building many times, but never had the chance to actually be there. Her biggest dreams had manifested with every footstep she took. As her venture continued, Veronica was soon standing in the town square, realizing that it was the town's biggest market. Even still, the early morning's emptiness amplified the market size, and the usual crowd Veronica usually could see wasn't there. The isolation made her heart a bit blue. Yet, keen Veronica tried to keep her spirits high. She hummed a song she heard a long time ago. As her hums traveled through the gentle breeze, Veronica felt like the queen of this dormant town. With no eyes nor ears spying on her, this humming queen believed that she could do anything without asking for permission. Feeling captivated by this freedom, Veronica strolled the quiet town and found herself striding towards the direction of a lake. She had heard that this particular lake would look breathtaking in the early morning. With the morning still rathe, Veronica knew this may be her only opportunity to see this view with her own eyes. She decided that she would return to the town when it was to be wide awake. That way, Veronica could take in the hustle-bustle of the town as she pleased. It's good that I have the whole day free. I'll just return after I have breakfast in the town, she decided gleefully. Veronica had to pass through a narrow alley between 4 abandoned houses to reach the muddy road of the woods. Although the road was muddy because of the drizzling rain last night, the tall trees which were towered the woods kept the woodland path dry. It was said that it would take a person 15 minutes to reach the lake when using this route. Veronica felt a wave of excitement rush through her. She walked briskly while inhaling the smell of wet mud. Before she realized, she reached her destination in only 10 minutes. "Oh, my goodness!" she exclaimed in amazement. Veronica's eyes sparkled and were glued onto the lake which lay before her. The lake view was truly breathtaking, and it felt as though time had stopped her breathing's usual rhythms. No verbal narrative could equal the visible beauty of this ethereal lake. The lake water was dyed a light blue, capturing the clear blue sky in the heavens above. Surrounding the lake were the clustered trees of the wood, whose reflection was as fine as a mirror. Since it was early morning, a light fog hovered above the lake, and the temperature was certainly more chilly than the warmth of the town. Veronica felt a shiver run through her bones as the cold breeze blew across her. Trying to keep in her body heat, Veronica hugged herself and rubbed her arms with both hands. The ground surrounding her was covered in green grass which was soft to her touch as she sat down on it. As she succumbed to the grass beneath her, Veronica was again enthralled by the waters in front of her. The smell of dirt, the green grass, the songs of birds, the spring breeze, they were a natural sedative. Indeed, Veronica was convinced that she was living in her own fairy tale. Veronica wondered if she should stay here for hours, without a care about when she had to return to her room. It was her one wish to stay here forever. But reality had suddenly dragged her out of her trance. Her tranquil isolation had ceased. A man had come out of the lake. Completely naked. Underscore 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 a/n, kids, as you can see, this isn't for you. But from my experience, I can tell that you won't listen to me. And who am I kidding? I'm myself forever 17. Ahahaha. Chapter 2. The Naked Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Veronica wasn't ready to see this. Her heart wasn't prepared to behold such a scene. In the middle of the lake, the naked man with slightly tanned skin stood up as water splashed everywhere. A few locks of his black hair were stuck to his face. Water dripped from his wet hair that almost covered his eyes. His sharp golden pupils shimmered dangerously. Droplets of water rolled down on his toned chest. In the morning light, the water drops sparkled like gems. Holding her breath, Veronica stared at the man in front of her. Her eyes trailed down without thinking anything in particular. It was her first time seeing a man's naked body. The lower her eyes went, the faster her heart thumped. Toward the end, her gaze trailed past his abdomen, and before she could control herself, her innocent eyes fell on that. Veronica's emerald orbs almost popped out of her sockets at the sight. She couldn't breathe. She opened her mouth, sucked in a long breath of oxygen, and then screamed. Ah! Just like that, the peace of the beautiful morning shattered and it woke up all the birds and animals in the woods. Veronica couldn't remember how she came back after that unprecedented encounter. Forget about exploring the town, she couldn't even remember that her birthday passed by while she was busy praying in the temple. She came back, changed her clothes, and went to the temple to pray. She needed to ask for forgiveness as she broke the rules and went out. She was disobedient and that's why she was punished. Goddess Javina must be angry. Or else why would she have to see such a sinful scene? She would rather lose her eyes. As she kept praying, the vision of that unknown naked man continued flashing in her head. And then, she recalled that. No. 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 This can't be happening, she internally screamed. She couldn't understand how she could be shameless enough to think about it. I have to concentrate on atoning my sins. I shouldn't choose the devil's path. After forcefully reconstructing her determination, she shut her eyes and clasped her hands close to her chest. The moment she started reciting the mantra to cleanse her soul, she envisioned that stark naked man once again. Ah, she shouted. Two young priests were walking outside the prayer room. Upon hearing a maiden's scream, they were startled. When they realized that the scream came from the prayer room, they ran in that direction. Bang! With a loud noise, they opened the heavy doors and rushed in. Seeing the very familiar maiden, they asked in anxiety, "Sister, are you all right?" Ah! Only then did she realize that she actually shouted loud enough to let others hear her. She was embarrassed. It was awkward as they kept staring at her with worried and innocent faces. I'm fine. Don't worry, she tried to ease their worry. Their eyes felt like arrows, piercing her guilty, sinful heart. She couldn't bear to look at them. She tried to come up with excuses. I tried to get up but I stood on my cloth that I nearly fell. That's why I shouted. I was scared. Sorry to bother you. And sorry for lying, she apologized in her heart. One of them inquired, "You are not hurt, are you?" "Nope, I'm completely okay. If I fell, I would have cried." The more she lied, the more she mentally stabbed her heart. As long as sister is fine. We won't bother you anymore. Please pray, the other priest said in a gentle voice. Afterward, they turned around and left the prayer room. They didn't forget to close the door behind them. As soon as they left, Veronica sighed in relief. That was a close call, she told herself. She turned around and looked at the huge statue of Goddess Javina. She knelt and asked for forgiveness. Goddess Javina, Mother of Kindness, please forgive this unfaithful child. The world is huge. In this huge world, there is a small country difficult to point out in the globe, named Utah Hill. Utah Hill is situated under the Alps. The Alps are the most extensive mountain range that lies in the north of Utah Hill. At the base of the mountain, there is a huge lake called Blue Moon. It is surrounded by deep woods. There is a town close to the woods. Palmer. This town has been built in the largest area. There are 3 villages around the Palmer town. Utah Hill is known as the Holy Kingdom or the Kingdom of Goddess Javina. People all over the globe pray to the kind, loving Goddess Javina. People come here to find peace. People come here to pray to their loving goddess. In the town, Palmer, there is situated the largest temple in the world. It is ancient. Some people believe that it was built by Goddess Javina herself so that her children could find their way to her, their home. Many people related to the temple live there. Not everyone is allowed to enter or live in the temple. Only the luckiest are chosen to live there, to serve the goddess and her people. Veronica is one of those fortunate people. After repenting for hours, she went back to her room. Since she fasted over her sins and repented for her crime, she was feeling weak. She remembered that she hadn't touched a single piece of bread since last night. While rubbing her stomach, she sat down on the bed. Ah, I'm so hungry. She spoke to herself in a low tone, but there is nothing that can be done. It was past lunchtime. No one would save food for her. Moreover, everyone here was disciplined. If someone anyhow skipped or missed lunch, they couldn't eat lunch later. They had to wait to have dinner directly. If she wanted to eat, she had to wait until dinner time. Waiting for it to approach, she cleaned her room. Only then did she see the dress that she wore in the morning. It was lying in the corner of the room. She hurriedly threw it in the corner after she came back. Seeing the unlucky dress, she remembered that she had to give it back to its original owner. I should wash it before dinner, thinking that she took it in her hand and heard something falling. Thud. Ha. Chapter 3. Wasn't hers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Wasn't hers. On the stone floor, something heavy fell and made a thud sound. Ha. What's this? Feeling curious, Veronica lowered her body and picked up the small thing. She draped the dress over her left arm before bringing the heavy object closer to one of the candles to have a clear look. Only then did she see that it was a blue gem, attached to a simple yet intricately weaved chain. Is that a locket? She wondered while looking at it. It was a sparkling blue gem that flickered beautifully under the candlelight. The chain was made of gold. Everyone in the temple had a locket, but their lockets were made of brass. Moreover, all of their pendants followed a simple design. A wheel design. As far as she could remember, none of them had anything that was remotely related to something fancy, not to mention a locket chain that screamed richness. I've never seen my brothers and sisters wearing something like this, she murmured while feeling the texture of the gem in her right hand. It was with the dress I wore in the morning. Then, could this be? She steadily turned her eyes toward the dress in her other arm. She concluded, since this locket fell from the dress and she didn't see it in the morning, then it could only mean one thing. And that was, the locket got stuck to her dress when she sat on the grass beside the lake. Since it wasn't hers or the owner of the dress, it could only belong to that man. She let out a low chuckle. You are really an unlucky dress, she cursed the dress in her arm. She sat on her bed and pondered over the issue at hand. She never took someone else's belongings and she had no reason to keep this locket either. No matter how luxurious it was of no use to her. Besides, stealing wasn't a good thing to do. And as far as she could remember, she had never stolen something in her entire life. Now that she accidentally took someone else's locket, she felt even worse for leaving the temple in the morning. I need to find that man and give it back to him as soon as possible. I also have to say sorry for peeping at him. As she was thinking, she came to a sudden realization. It means, I have to leave again. She choked. She had to find an opportunity to sneak out tomorrow. This plan made her uncomfortable. However, she knew she couldn't get any peace of mind if she kept this with her either. His locket could pull back all those images of her sinful encounter with the naked man. Nevertheless, thinking of her schedule for the following day, she gasped in horror. Because, from tomorrow, her cleaning duty will start. At dawn, she has to go to the prayer room to lit up all the candles. And then, she needs to go to the inner temple and inform the high priest about taking over the aforementioned duty before she can start working. She has no time to leave tomorrow. And her duty will continue till next month. What to do? What to do? She marched from one side to the other in her room. She couldn't keep this locket with her, neither could she go and give it back to its owner. Veronica looked outside the window. From there, she could see the busy town roads which were still brightly lit up. At that moment, she made a decision. Even though it was time to sleep, the city was still bustling. People were walking, laughing, and even gossiping. Veronica was now strolling in the market area. It's more crowded than other places. She felt like that man could be here. The truth was, she was afraid of dark places and that's why she avoided quiet places like dark alleys. Her heart was thumping in nervousness and she was joyful at the same time. She wanted to see this city and her dream came true. She was looking for a place where many men gathered to eat and drink. She had asked a shopkeeper about where she could gather information and the woman told her to look for a bar. She once heard that people go to bars to drink booze. She had no idea what booze was. She asked around and found a bar. She went inside. Inside the bar was a little dark, even darker than the night roads of a busy town. The lights were dim. There was an odd smell that she couldn't recognize. She heard laughter and loud voices that belonged to men. Veronica stood there dumbfounded. She had no clue where to go next, whom to ask questions. She didn't move until someone from her back spoke aloud, "Hey lass, move." She was startled. She jumped and moved to the side. And when she finally turned around, she saw a giant man. Nervously, she stepped back a little, giving the living mountain enough room to walk inside the bar. The bulky man didn't care about her. He just strode past her and went to the bar counter. "Max, give me the usual," he ordered. The bartender, Max, seemed to be in his early 20s. He had fair skin and dark brown hair. His brown eyes were peaceful. He was a fine, young gentleman. He was wearing an off-white shirt and paired it with dark green pants. Max gleefully replied, "Coming up." "How is it going?" the bulky man questioned the bartender. Max answered, "Everything is going well. The harvest was great. The crops will be delivered to the town tomorrow. I heard that the royal family has decided to distribute the best crops to the orphans." But his recipient didn't seem that moved. He stated, "The royal family's contribution is praiseworthy." "Anything unusual?" Max lowered his voice and reported, "I heard a man had come to the town. He was looking for a job." Meanwhile, Veronica, who had been eavesdropping, unintentionally or intentionally, stepped closer. She cleared her throat loud enough to get their attention. "Excuse me, sorry to interrupt your conversation. I have a favor to ask you." Max gave her a friendly smile. "Hello, miss, what can I do for you?" "I'm looking for a man. Can you help me find him?" she questioned. Chapter 4. At the bar. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Veronica asked politely, "I'm looking for a man. Can you help me to find him?" Max served the Hulk a glass of beer before looking at his new customer properly. The girl was at least 5 feet 6 inches tall with a slender body. She was wearing a worn-out dress and her back and head were covered in a cape with an oversized hood. Even so, her fair skin, pink lips, and green pupils made it hard to not notice her. Max had keen eyes. He couldn't miss the details. He complimented her na.ve, pretty look inwardly and then inquired, "A man. How does he look?" The bulky man also turned to face her. He was curious to know what she had to say. He is this tall." Veronica raised her hand while standing on her tiptoes to show how long that man was. "He has black hair and yellow eyes. He is B.B.B." She turned red and stammered. She couldn't complete the last word. Max waited for her to finish her description but gave up when he concluded that she couldn't utter another word. In the end, he said, "Yellow eyes, that's unusual. I have heard of a man who has golden eyes but I don't know where he is now, Mississippi. Sorry I couldn't help you." "Ah, is that so?" Veronica's heart dropped. She looked down. She was upset. Seeing her pitiful expression, Max suggested, "Would you like to drink? I can guarantee that my drinks are of better quality than those that are found in the other bars around. If nothing else, you should consider passing your time here as he might come here to drink." "Oh, really?" Veronica's emerald eyes were filled with hope instantly. "Then, can I sit inside your bar while waiting?" She couldn't give up yet. She wished to stay inside and wait for him to come. "Of course, you can sit in that corner," Max pointed to a small table in a corner. "This is the first time that a pretty lady like you had come to my place and asked for something. Unfortunately, I couldn't help you." So, whatever you want to eat, it's on the house tonight. Veronica blushed at the words, pretty lady. She obediently sat in the corner. When a glass was placed on her table, she thanked Max. Please enjoy the drink. In the meantime, I will find someone to help you go searching for the man you're looking for. Max left after saying that. Juice. She curiously looked inside the glass. The wooden glass was filled up to 2/3 with a colorful drink. It smelled sweet. She sipped a little and her eyes sparkled instantly. She could recognize the taste. It's cherry juice. She never tasted sweet drinks. Like a child, she wondered how they made the cherry drinks with those beautiful round fruits. While she was enjoying her juice, someone approached her. The person stood in front of her and asked, "Miss, are you looking for a man with golden eyes?" "Yes," Veronica answered while nodding. She stared at the man with expectations. The person was middle-aged, with tan skin and a round figure. He was wearing a brown waistcoat over a simple white shirt and a pair of brown pants. Holding a smoking pipe in his hand, he leaned forward and said, "I know a man of your description. I know where he is now." Veronica's eyes shone with hope. "Do you really know where he is? This is great. Can you please tell me?" He lowered his voice and answered, "It's Marina's palace." Marina's palace. Veronica blinked. This was the first time she heard such a name. She became worried instantly. How would she know where that place was when it was only her first time hearing its name ever? Realizing that she couldn't recognize the place, the man snickered. He said, "Since Max told me to help you, I can show you the way if you want." Veronica walked behind the man on the street. Later, they entered through the gate, and then it felt like they were in a different dimension. The streets were decorated. Men and women were standing close to each other without caring about others' gaze. They were chatting and laughing. Veronica's eyes widened in surprise when she saw some men and women were being too intimate in public. What kind of place is this? She wondered in horror. Is it okay to go further? But then, I can't meet that man and give him back his necklace. She was in a dilemma. She was scared of these strange people around her. Her grip on her skirt tightened. No, I can't go back. I finally came all this way just to meet him. After I'm done with my business, I will go back to the temple. Deciding on what she needed to do, she walked forward in determined steps. Just then, her escort went inside the most luxurious building up front. She followed after him. "Where are we?" she questioned him. The man narrated shortly, "We are in Marina's palace. This is the place I was talking about earlier. There is a restaurant on the first floor. You can get all the types of food here. Most of the men and women in town come here to seek eternal pleasure. You will find him somehow. Just stay in the restaurant and you will see all sorts of people going in and out. You will meet him here for sure." "Oh, I see. Thank you very much, sir. I don't know how to repay you." Veronica was overwhelmed with gratitude. The man politely stated, "It's all right. You are Max's precious guest. This is the least I can do for you. Anyway, as for my payment, please give me 2 silver coins." Veronica blinked. She couldn't understand what he was talking about. She didn't buy anything from him. Why would she have to give him money? Moreover, 1 silver coin meant 100 bronze coins. No one could afford that much money unless they were filthy rich. The man understood that this woman was absolutely clueless. He let out a sigh and explained, "Miss, I guided you all the way here. You have to pay me for my service." Chapter 5. The Marina's Palace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The Marina's Palace. "Miss, I took you all the way here. You have to pay for my service," he explained. He never met such a weird and NAVE lady before. For a person not to know that they had to pay for services, that was unthinkable in this town. Is she some kind of noble lady in disguise? Or could it be that she is a princess, he wondered. But, I only have 3 bronze coins, Veronica stuttered in a panicked voice. She didn't imagine that she would need money to find a guy. She brought some money from her savings so that she could eat some street food. She heard that the street foods were tastier than restaurant food. What? The man yelled in anger. Why did you think I've worked so hard to bring you here? He shouted loud enough to attract some attention. Veronica flinched. She was frightened. It was the first time someone spoke to her raising their voice. The man let out a growl. If you can't pay money, why don't you pay with your body? He abruptly grabbed her slender arm and pulled her. Wait. Veronica stammered. She was so scared that her words got caught in her throat. She couldn't speak in fear. The onlookers pitied her but they didn't come to help her. She looked at them hoping they would help her but her hope was crushed as they looked away. No way. She thought in horror. Why aren't they helping me? Shouldn't they save me? The people of Utah Hill were supposed to be the kindest people on earth. Why is this happening then? The man took her by force to the 5th floor. Seeing that she wasn't panting after climbing so many stairs, he smirked. You've got lots of stamina. Good then. Thomas, did you bring a lost lamb again? A sultry voice asked. The man named Thomas turned to face the owner of the voice. Veronica turned her head as well. Her eyes shimmered seeing a tall, slender figure of a female. She was wearing a revealing red dress that showed her ample cleavage and a generous amount of her legs. Her curves could be noted from her tight dress. Her eyes were like cats. Her lips were red enough that it seemed like blood was dripping from them. What struck Veronica the most, however, was the absolute lack of shyness that the busty woman possessed. Thomas stated, yes, she needs to pay me 2 silver coins. Give her the job that will help her pay for my service. The woman smirked. Oh, but she doesn't look like she will be of great help. Thomas looked at Veronica and said, since you are healthy, you can work right. Working in the Marina's palace will earn you 5 silver in a single night. You can pay me back after you have earned the money. Veronica hurriedly told the woman in front of her, I can cook, wash clothes, wipe floors. She knew that being in debt wasn't a good thing. Moreover, she wanted to get away from this shady man as soon as possible. That's why she wanted to take this opportunity. The woman chuckled. You are one amusing little girl, my dear. Unfortunately, we don't need someone to wash clothes and wipe floors at night. We already have the best cook in town. Why don't you serve food to the customers instead? Although it won't earn you 5 silver coins. Remember that. If you work hard, I can pay you 3 silver coins. Does that sound fair? Why? Yes. Veronica easily agreed. As long as she could pay, she had no reason to fight. That's great. The woman clapped her hands and 2 women came to meet her. They were also wearing slightly revealing clothes but they weren't as beautiful as the woman in red clothes. She instructed her workers, take her to the dressing room and dress her up. She will serve the customers. Yes, Madame Morena, the women replied in a monotonous voice before they escorted Veronica inside the room. Madame Morena stepped closer to Thomas and asked, why don't you sell this little lamb to me? She looks exquisite. She will do a good job in our field. Thomas snickered and it somehow made his face look uglier. Wait, I can get ready on my own. Veronica did her best to cover her bosom as those 2 women tried to take off her clothes. One of those women said, Madame Morena's orders. We must help you to dress up. But. Seeing that they wouldn't budge, Veronica sighed. All right, but let me take off my own clothes. After changing clothes and putting on some makeup, she looked at herself in the mirror. She gaped at her own reflection. Her hair was loosely braided to one side and the silver accessories shone in the light. Her eyes were highlighted with golden glitter and her lips were colored red. She was wearing a deep blue dress. It was short-sleeved and the skirt's hem touched her ankle. The dress sparkled since some glitters were added on the dress. The only problem with the dress was, on the left side of the skirt, it was ripped off and her beautiful slender leg was showing. There was certainly enough skin on display to lure any hot-blooded man to her beauty. She covered her leg uncomfortably. Is there any way to cover my leg? Those two women got tired of dressing her up and doing makeup. Veronica stopped them from touching her and almost fought with them as they kept putting colors on her face. When it was finished, they felt like they had won a war. Veronica realized she shouldn't say anything anymore. She took their silence as a no and asked innocently, "What do I have to do now?" Chapter 6. Her new job. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Here's the wine you ordered, gentlemen. A girl was seen gently trudging toward a table full of men while serving the customers white wine. She was holding a serving tray filled with several glasses of white wine. One of the drunk customers glanced at the new girl. "Oh, a new face. Babe, what do they call you?" "Everyone calls me Ver." The girl halted before she uttered her full name. "I shouldn't tell my name to strangers. What if it causes a problem later?" She thought about it and said no more. The man exclaimed, "Ver. What an unusual name. So, Ver, where do you live?" I live around. Please excuse me. I have to serve other customers." Saying that, Veronica quickly left that room. After coming out of the room, she leaned against the cold wall and let out a deep breath. That was close, she thought. I have to be more careful next time. She reminded herself to be careful and turned around to leave. However, she bumped into someone. Veronica's heart nearly flew out of her chest. Her legs almost gave out in nervousness. She panicked and quickly bowed to apologize. "I'm very sorry. It won't happen again. Please forgive me." The man in front of her said nothing. He looked at her in silence for a while before letting out a low growl. Only after that man walked past her, did she raise her head again. She didn't dare to look behind. She served a few more customers before excusing herself to take a short break. However, she faced trouble even before she could fully enjoy this short break of hers. She was serving drinks in the casino when a customer called out for her, "Pretty girl, are you new here?" Veronica was startled and glanced in the direction of the sound. She saw a customer was sitting there alone. His dress up made her think that he was rich. She carefully stepped forward and answered his question nervously, "Why?" "Yes." The man was drinking and playing cards alone. No one bothered him either. As if he liked to have a quiet time on his own. His eyes shone as he heard her reply, "Goodness, no wonder I've never seen you here before. I like your eyes. Gorgeous. What's your name?" Observing his jolly attitude, she relaxed her shoulders. She didn't notice that she was holding her breath. "My name is Ver." The man commented, "Your name is unusual too." "Well, no one actually uses a real name here. I like your name. It's unique." No one uses a real name here. But why? Name is one's identity. They should proudly announce their names. Veronica pondered but then had a second thought, who am I kidding? I'm also using my nickname here. I guess, it's better to have another name in a place like this. Don't just stand there, sit, the man suddenly told her. Veronica quickly replied, I'm sorry. I'm not allowed to join with the customers at the table. The maidens who dressed her up, told her all the things that they were allowed to do. She had to maintain them so long as she was working here. The man objected to her claim, "That's not true. If a customer asks for some company, Morina's maids accompany us all the time. You can ask others if you want." Veronica looked at other maids and they slightly nodded to confirm his claim. Only after that, she said, "Then, I'll accompany our customer but I cannot sit during work." "I'm sorry." The man didn't seem displeased at all. "Stubborn girl, but I like it. Since you won't sit, drink with me." "Drink? What drink?" Veronica asked. "This is red wine. It's one of the expensive ones. Since you joined today, let's have your welcome party by drinking. Come on, drink up." The man shoved a glass full of red wine toward her. She looked at the red-colored drink and inquired, "Am I allowed?" In her heart, she was excited to try this new juice. The juice she drank before was so tasty. She wouldn't mind tasting another drink. "Of course, I already paid for it." "Drink up." The man encouraged her. With great interest, she chugged the red wine. She finished the whole glass in one gulp. The sweetness washed over her mouth and gave her a jolting surprise. The customer spoke in a concerned tone, "Hey, Ver, are you okay? You shouldn't have drunk so much. If you don't have tolerance, you will become drunk." Right after he said that, her head swirled as if the world was spinning around her. "Ha!" She abruptly stood up and glanced at her hand. She was seeing everything double. The man was really worried. "Ver, are you okay? Maybe you need some rest." However, Veronica didn't hear him. In her drunken state, she walked away. Sometimes, she collided with someone but she didn't bother with them. She found the balcony not too far away and headed in that direction. She took some deep breaths and inhaled oxygen. Fresh oxygen helped her to slightly clear her head. While she was standing on the balcony to get some fresh air, someone grabbed her waist from behind. She yelped in surprise at the sudden assault. In her panic, she lost her footing and her back clashed against another body. She looked behind only to find a drunk man standing too close for her comfort if she could say. The man's face was flushed and he smelt like the drink she drunk a few moments ago. She looked closely and noticed that it was the same man who offered her a drink. She was confused and didn't know what was happening. The man spoke in a slurred tone, "You pretty girl, you should know what it means when a man offers you drink and you drink it." "Ha! What does that mean?" "I don't kn." She couldn't finish her words before she was practically dragged by him. She frantically looked around but could not find anyone who could help her. Chapter 7. The Drunkard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Veronica regretted her actions. When she was told that the outside world was terrifying and she was only safe inside the walls, she should have believed it. She shouldn't have gone out and roamed around on her own. She shouldn't have listened to others and followed them without actually knowing them. She should have left as soon as she was left by that Thomas. This way she didn't have to worry about paying someone back or even being assaulted right now. Nonetheless, her regrets came too late. She was being assaulted and touched quite inappropriately by a stranger. Nothing could ever undo what was happening to her right now. She was ruined. Forever. A feeling of disgust was brewing inside of her. She was in pain. Her tears fell from her eyes uncontrollably. She felt as if death was better than this. Bang! At that moment, someone barged into the room and knocked the drunk guy above her. It didn't even take a full minute for that man's heavy body to slump weakly on her body. "Ah!" Veronica screamed in fear. Afterward, someone dragged the man off of her body. She shuddered in fear. If you could shout, why didn't you do it earlier? It would have been easier to locate a helpless lady, a manly voice spoke in the dark. Veronica's lips were trembling. She couldn't dare to speak after hearing another man's voice. His voice was deep and unrecognizable. She was wary of the man who came close to her. "Not going to speak? I didn't think you were so ungrateful." The man walked away from the bed while dragging the unconscious drunk man and then threw him out of the room into the corridor. He lit the candles in the room and then turned to face her. As the light flooded the small space, the interior of the room became visible. It's a small room with a bed in the corner and a table and a chair beside the bed. Apparently, it's for the guests who wanted to rest and also have fun with the prostitutes they chose. Veronica blinked several times to adjust her eyes to the light. She carefully looked at the man in front of her. The man seemed darker under the candlelight. His black hair looked slightly red. His chest was exposed as he wore only a purple robe with a golden border. His golden eyes glittered in the candlelight. Her emerald pupils widened as she recognized him. Her small lips opened slightly. A few minutes ago, a man was drinking in silence. He was the same man with whom Veronica collided earlier while walking along the corridor. Around him, 3 girls were saying nothing but sweet words, trying to please him. Their dreamy eyes and voices only annoyed him, but he didn't express his emotion. At that time, Madame Morena entered the room. She spoke in a sultry voice, My, I have never seen my beloved master in such a bad mood. What could have happened to make you have this expression at my place? Your gloomy face is breaking my heart. She sounded as if she was really heartbroken. I've lost something precious this morning. I'm hoping to get it back somehow, he quietly answered. He was in a bad mood. Madame Morena signaled the other girls to leave. The girls became sad as they were told to leave so soon. They wished to stay with him a bit longer. After they left, Madame Morena strode closer and sat beside him. She poured him the highest quality of red wine and held the glass in front of his mouth. I would like to carry your burden, my beloved master. What can I do for you? The man took the glass from her hand and sipped slowly. After that, he licked his lips. Ah, poor her. She just joined today and she is going to get devoured. This customer always causes trouble. All of a sudden, he heard some girls talking about a girl being dragged away by a drunk customer outside the room. He listened to their conversation without a word. That girl seemed rich. Why would she come to work here? Rich. How so? She was wearing a blue locket with a golden chain. Not just anyone could own such a huge gem and wear it at night, showing off proudly. She must be some rich lady, ah. The girl, who was talking, screamed as a customer suddenly opened the door right in front of them. It was the man who was spending time with Madame Morena. His golden orbs were deep as he gazed at those women. The girl you are talking about, where is she? He asked. The situation now, I didn't know I would find you here of all places, the man stated as he glanced at her. Have you been tailing me, Miss Stalker? She spoke in a low tone, why that you are the naked man. His golden orbs narrowed slightly. Those pupils flickered in amusement. Did you like what you saw? Veronica's face flushed instantly. Don't be an idiot. Who would like things like that, she stuttered. Her head was dizzy but now she could see his figure properly. His tall figure was emitting a mysterious aura. Is that so? The guy let out a low chuckle. His eyes roamed around her body as if scanning her and then paused on her naked chest. In the dim light, he admired her supple breasts for a moment longer than necessary before gazing at her hazy eyes. I believe you took something from me. How long are you going to carry it? Veronica's brain was fuzzy. She could barely think with her head. The man pointed at the valley between her breasts. If my memory serves me correctly, that thing belongs to me. Veronica looked down at her chest and gasped. She quickly covered her breasts. After that, she glared at him resentfully. These aren't yours. The man unhurriedly corrected her thoughts. I meant the locket you are wearing now. Ah. Veronica looked at the locket she was wearing. For some reason, the blue gem was emitting dim light. It could be because of the element of the gem. She had seen some elements like this one that would absorb light and emit a bit of light in the dark. Chapter 8. Not yours to covet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Veronica finally remembered why she was wearing it and why she came to the town. She took it off with her shaky hands. "I'm sorry, I took it mistakenly." "I know," he replied. In the morning, when he saw her running away, he called her from behind as he noticed that his locket got stuck to her skirt. However, she didn't heed his words. Moreover, upon hearing his voice, she ran even faster. He couldn't chase after her because he was naked. He walked forward and tried to pick up the locket from her hand, but couldn't. She was gripping the locket tightly. He raised his left eyebrow in surprise, noticing her tight grip on the locket. Noticing that she had no desire to let it go, he opened his mouth. "Even if you fancy this, I cannot let you have it. It's not something that a kid like you should be coveting." She sounded as if she agreed, but she still didn't let go for some reason. Realizing that she wouldn't hand it over, he forcefully yanked his locket only to have her body crash into his chest. When her soft body slammed into his, he was momentarily stunned. He was surprised to find out that her body temperature was rising. "You are sick?" he asked as he placed the back of his hand on her forehead. He asked in confusion, "Miss Stalker, you don't have a fever, but why is your temperature so high?" Veronica clutched his velvet robe and pleaded with him in a low voice, "Please, help me." "Help you? How?" he inquired without emotion. She was fine minutes ago. Her sudden change of attitude made him wonder if it was her plot not to give him back his necklace. He had faced so many frauds like that in his life that he lost count. Veronica quivered. She was feeling quite strange. She raised her head to look at him pitifully. The man narrowed his eyes. He could see in the candlelight that her face was completely red. Her eyes were moist. Tears dampened her big eyes and curvy eyelashes. Her emerald pupils shone in the lights. Her deep pink lips were slightly open. From his experience, she had no idea how to handle a man. If she was an expert, she wouldn't have freaked out once she saw him naked. He warned her, "Woman, you shouldn't play with fire. I feel weird," Veronica confessed. Her voice was shaking. She couldn't look at him properly as her vision was getting blurred. "My body feels hot, very hot." The man thought for a second before looking down at the floor. Seeing the glass laying upon the floor, he picked it up and smelled it. That's an aphrodisiac mixed with red wine. You should be grateful that I kicked out the man who made you drink this. But, what are we going to do about you now? This aphrodisiac can only wear off after you release yourself." "Release? What?" Veronica could barely hear his words. Her brain wasn't functioning properly. From up close, she could smell his unique odor. It was making her feel even more lightheaded. She didn't want to pull away from him. She felt like clinging onto him and devouring him completely. She was ashamed of her own thoughts, but it hardly mattered. All she wished for right now was to stay by his side and smell his scent. She gazed at his exposed chest and her throat became dry. She boldly touched his muscled chest and roamed her hand freely. "Do you know what you are doing?" the man asked. His voice was dangerously low and deep. At night, in the brothel, a woman in his arms, touching and craving for him, a virile man in his prime couldn't possibly resist this kind of temptation easily. Veronica moved closer and placed her lips on his skin. She muttered, "I like it. Give it to me." The man stared at her for a while with conflicting emotions clearly playing on his manly face, debating what to do with her. After pondering for a good while, he pushed her away. "Enough, you don't have to do this. You will regret it later." But who would listen to him? The person he was talking to wasn't in her right mind. Veronica wrapped her arms around him despite his warning and rubbed her body against him. The more she rubbed, the more her blood boiled. The burning sensation inside her body was spreading like wildfire. When rubbing wasn't enough, her lips trailed over his chest. She couldn't think rationally any longer. It was as if she had been possessed by some kind of sexually deviant entity. The man who was being assaulted closed his eyes and let out a deep sigh. Even though he wasn't in the mood, his primitive instinct was getting stronger by the second. He had to admit that this inexperienced woman had her own charm powerful enough to take him down. He knew if he pushed her away and walked out of the room, she couldn't do as she pleased. He would be free. After that, they might never meet again. However, she wouldn't calm down until her hunger subsided. If she couldn't have him, she would look for someone else and become their prey. Thinking of that, he slightly frowned. He didn't like the idea of a woman being ruined when she wasn't in the right state of her mind. He could make a guess that she would regret it for the rest of her life if she were to give her virginity to a total stranger. Moreover, he had a feeling that she ended up here because she wanted to give his valued possession back to her. Or else, she wouldn't be here. When he met her for the first time, she didn't seem like the bad people he met during his journey usually. It would make him feel bad if she got raped only because she was looking for him. He stated, "It looks like you are not going to listen to me. Since you want me that much, I can give in this time. After all, you gave me back my locket. This is the least I can do. Consider my debt to you paid." Chapter 9. Comfortable bed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Coo, you, coo, you. The birds were chirping to welcome another new day. The sun was too lazy to get up from the bed maybe. A yellow hue could be seen in the eastern sky. Veronica moaned softly. She rubbed her face against the pillow. Feeling the touch of silk and squishy pillow, she sighed in content. Anyone could see the smile on her lips. Is this morning already? She wondered. So soft, thinking that she shifted to the left side. I never slept in a soft bed before. While she was being joyful about her luxurious life, a sudden thought hit her hard. She never had a soft bed. If this bed wasn't hers, then who did it belong to? Her eyes flew open. The room was dark. A slight light was coming out of the open window. From there, she could see the quiet city. For as long as she could remember, every day she woke up and saw the sky since she lived in the tower. However, judging by the current view of the city, it certainly didn't seem like she was in her room. With a jolt, she sat up. Her head throbbed in tremendous pain. She flinched. While holding her head, she adjusted her eyes to the dark and her heart dropped. She finally confirmed with her own eyes that this wasn't the room where she always woke up. Where am I? Why do I have a headache? She pondered as she tried to get up from the bed gingerly. Her head spun when she stood up. Oh, she let out a yelp as she began to fall down. At that moment, a strong arm wrapped around her waist and protected her from falling. Veronica let out a gasp. Thank you, she said without thinking. Why did you move so quickly right after you woke up? A deep, hoarse voice spoke. She jumped out of fright. Seeing a man hugging her close to him made her face turn pale. Why is this man in my room? And on the same bed? Wait, did I spend the whole night with him? The horror of realization made her lose the strength of her legs. However, the man's grip on her waist only tightened. Are you okay? He asked. You. She looked at him warily. Who are you? The man slightly raised his eyebrows. Who am I? Don't you remember? Remember what? She tried to think frantically. Just then, she noticed the blue gem locket hanging from his neck. Feeling surprised, she looked at him once again and recognized that person instantly. Naked man. The man let out a deep sigh and stated, Princess, I have a name. It's Arthur. Stop calling me naked man. I'm not the only one who gets naked during bathing. Veronica nervously remarked, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. He inquired, can you stand on your own feet now? Yes. She tilted her head, not realizing why he asked this question. He flatly spoke, "Then, let go of my robe. Your action makes me think that you are trying to take my clothes off for some ulterior motive." She looked at his chest and saw that her hands were clenching his robe in such a way that his robe was about to fall off. She quickly let go of him. "I didn't mean it. I'm sorry." She paused before asking, "Where am I?" She looked around curiously. "And why am I with you?" Without answering her question, he questioned her in return, "Don't you remember what happened last night?" "What happened last night?" Veronica's voice trailed off as she took a trip down her memory lane. She recalled being a maid serving drinks. After that, a customer forcefully tried to her and then. Slowly but surely, Veronica's face turned completely red like a ripe tomato. We. She stuttered. She never thought she would be sexually frustrated enough to ask an unknown man to give her pleasure. "No. This can't be," she screamed internally and covered her ears to control her vivid memory that flashed in her head. There was another shock that awaited her. When she thought about that, her face became ghastly pale. She slowly turned his way and asked him, "Did we?" Arthur must have understood what she wanted to say. He answered, "Relax. I have no intention of taking advantage of a woman who doesn't want to sleep with me. Whatever I did last night was to relieve you from the drug effect." "Is that so?" She gave him a doubtful look. She had the right to not believe a total stranger. Arthur wasn't surprised by her action though. He felt even more satisfied that he didn't lose control last night. When he saw her nude body, he nearly banged her right then and there. He used his last drop of will not to eat her alive. Even right now, remembering her alluring sight made him hard. Veronica must have caught on to his words. "Did you say last night? That means..." She gasped and looked out of the window. Although it couldn't be seen through the faraway forest, she could visualize the sun was about to get up from its bed. She remembered that from today onwards, she had to go to the innermost temple and give her attendance to the head priest. Her brain told her, "I have to leave." Just as she thought that, she turned around and ran toward the exit. At first, she opened the bathroom door. Realizing that she made a mistake, she strode in the direction of the other door. BL.net Arthur was momentarily astounded by her action. However, he calmed himself first and, not wanting to scare her, he unhurriedly commented, "Are you going to go wearing just that?" Veronica paused and looked at him. Arthur shrugged and mentioned, "I mean, it looks good on you, but it's not appropriate." Only then she gazed at herself and saw that the silver-colored silk robe she was wearing was half open. Her left nipple and navel peeked out of the robe. Chapter 10. Drama unfolding. You are listening at novelfull.audio. L.rg. She let out a scream and covered her upper body with her hands. Her face became beet red. Arthur enjoyed her reaction but didn't show it on his face. He spoke, "There are your clothes and the wages you earned from working last night. The women were rather worried about you." As he pointed out, Veronica saw a set of clothes carefully folded and placed on the table. Those were the clothes she wore last night. She quickly took her clothes and rushed to the bathroom. After changing clothes and covering herself properly, she briefly thanked him and left hurriedly. From the window, he stared at her until she disappeared into the downtown alley. "What a strange princess," Arthur commented. I forgot to ask her name." "They called her Ver, right? Unique girl, unique name. Hard to forget someone like her." He recalled last night's event. Flashback, "Consider my debt to you paid," he said. Before Veronica could say anything, her vision spun. Her body turned upside down as he threw her on his shoulder and went out of the room. Many guests and prostitutes were peeping inside the room curiously. They were excitedly watching the drama unfolding. It was the very reason he got out of the room. He carried Veronica directly into his room. Surprisingly, Madame Morena was still waiting for him. Seeing him carrying a subordinate of her own, she was startled. "Master, this girl." "Get out of the room," he commanded without changing his expression. Recognizing the girl in his arms, her face became slightly pale. "But, she isn't for this. I mean, she hasn't been trained yet. Master always sought out experienced women. Should I select the best women for you instead?" The man replied without looking at her, "I know all of your best women, Morena. If this girl isn't ready yet, you shouldn't have let another customer have his way with her. Now get out. Don't spoil my mood more than it already has been." Madame Morena glanced at Veronica one last time before leaving the room. She closed the door from behind. The door locked from the inside automatically. No one could come inside until Veronica and the guy opened the door for them. The room was rather luxurious. It was a first-class room for the rich customers, so not everyone could afford to rent this room. The room was spacious. The floor was covered with a cream-colored carpet with an exclusive design. There was a king-size bed in the middle of the room. The silk bed sheet was maroon-colored. The gorgeous chandelier was right above the bed. There was also a cream-colored couch and a golden-colored tea table. The finest wine was placed on the table for the customer to enjoy through the night. However, no one had the time to appreciate the interior design. The man threw her on the bed and did it much more gently than the last person. The bed was soft and comfortable. After her body bounced twice, she opened her mouth in astonishment. She never slept in such a cozy bed before. Veronica rolled on the bed but couldn't move further because the person hovered over her. She looked at him with round eyes. He commented in amusement, "I thought you wanted me, but now you seem more interested in this bed. I'm jealous." Veronica remembered that thing she was craving for much more than some comfortable mattress right now. The thing that made her thirsty. The man in front of her seemed more delicious than any dinner she had ever had. She just couldn't help but liken the man before him to food. She reached out her hand and hugged him. She drew him closer and wrapped her legs around his back. "Ha! Is this your way of seducing me?" the man asked. He let out a laugh seeing her embracing him like a koala. "What are you? A pet?" She tightly embraced him with her hands and legs and stayed like that for a long time. Nonetheless, it wasn't enough. His scent and rough skin were driving her crazy. The more tightly she hugged him, the more she wanted him. She uncomfortably moved her body while tightly holding him close. Sensing her discomfort, he knew he had to do something. He looked down at her and asked, "Do you want some water, princess?" "Water?" Veronica gazed at him as if she couldn't understand him. Her eyes were fixed on his lips before she crushed her mouth on it. His eyes grew wide at the sudden attack. He didn't think she would be this bold, but ouch, he winced. He would be pleased if she were to kiss him lovingly. However, to an inexperienced girl like her, kissing meant biting one's lips. "I can't let her eat my lips any longer." Just as he decided, he pulled away. Veronica frowned. She seemed very displeased by his action. She had yet to satisfy her hunger and he took away her meal. His golden orbs flicked in amusement. For some reason, after meeting her, he was having a lot more fun than he expected. "You shouldn't bite people like that," he taught her. "Now, open your mouth. Let me teach you how to kiss someone." She absolutely needed to have his lips. For that, she was ready to do anything. She obediently opened her lips and was waiting to bite him again. He leaned forward and pressed his lips against hers. Her eyes widened in surprise. She never thought kissing could have such a soft feeling. Not only did it comfort her, but it also made her crave for more. At that time, he confused her by sucking her lower lip gently. She gasped. She closed her eyes and shuddered from the unique sensation. She let him kiss her until she held him firmly and tried to copy his action by sucking his upper lip that was in between her lips.